Tendency the
I get it.
All right, good morning, everyone, once again. And I've been asked multiple times to make it quick, so. I'd like to call the Will County Board Executive Committee meeting to order at 10:12. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? And I would like to invite Miss Allie Harms. Would you like to lead us this morning?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sandy, can we have a roll?
Richmond. Williams. Butler. Dean Schlattman. Freeman. Hickey. Logan. Newquist. Ortiz. Pretzel. Trinier. Van Dyne.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, looking for a motion to approve the minutes of 7/10/2025. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Richmond. Williams. Butler. Hickey. Logan. Newquist. Trinier. Van Dyne.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Can we add member Ortiz and member Freeman to the roll, please?
I will.
Thank you. All right, second set of minutes, Executive Committee meeting minutes for 8/14/2025. Is there a motion? Previous? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? That motion will carry. We have an item under old business, Resolution 25/28/29, authorizing the development of a strategic plan for the Will County Board. Discussion? Okay. Anyone would like to discuss, please put your light on. Oh, I misunderstood you. You think this plan is a good idea? Okay, all right. I thought you meant discussion. I'm sorry. Previous was by Logan and seconded by Ms. Ortiz. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. There is no other old business listed here on our agenda, so moving on to new business, the Will County Mental Health 708 Board presentation and the 2026 budget proposal by Tina Mackey. Good morning and welcome.
Hello. Okay.
Good.
All right. Good morning. Happy to be here this morning. Thank you for a few minutes of your time. I did distribute some items earlier this morning to your workstations, an annual report, which we'll refer to a little bit through the course of the presentation. And then we also created a map of our grantees and located them throughout the county. Some of the corporate headquarters actually fall outside the county. That doesn't mean that the services are occurring there. The services are actually occurring in Will County for Will County residents. But I thought it might be interesting to map out, just sort of glance, you can see that we're pretty comprehensive in terms of services throughout the county. Many of the grantees themselves offer services that do span county-wide. of course, but some are more local, and so that gives you a little bit of an idea. And then I've listed the grantees and the addresses. So again, just for your information. And then a little card that features the IRIS program, and we'll talk a little bit about that too in a minute. So today we'd like to identify the 708 board, identify our strategic priorities, talk a little bit about some achievements of note. We're just a little bit more than 1 quarter through the 2025 grant cycle. So even though our fiscal year is a little bit more advanced than that, July 15th marked the end of the first quarter for grantees to report. So we've got some of that information in the annual report. And then again, there's some achievements of note that I'd like to talk about just a little bit. A review of the financials, and then a review of the 2026 grant cycle budget proposal and tax levy proposal. I have a copy of that needs assessment if we talked about, so if anybody wants to see that. So the Will County Community Mental Health Board members, Elna Lynn Costa, she's also a representative here from the Will County Board. She's our president. Pat Mead is vice president. Jessica Bull Parks, our secretary. Terry King, treasurer. And then other board members, Ashley Searing, Juhi Fahim, Tessa Quinlan, Christina Santino, and Katrina Jones. And so, again, our volunteer board members that do a good job for us. The 2025 grant cycle strategic priorities. Again, we did the 708 Board Commission a needs assessment in the spring of 2024. Based on the feedback from that needs assessment, there were 5 strategic priorities determined: crisis supports and service gaps, intellectual developmental disability programs, suicide prevention, transportation, and workforce development. And again, in the annual report, there's a little bit more narrative describing each of those categories. Achievements. In the annual report, pages 9, 10, 11 outline some of our achievements that grantees are reporting. Again, we're not seeing as many. We're in the first quarter. October 15th will be the deadline for the second quarter, and then so on, January 15th, April 15th. So, but based on the initial feedback that we're seeing, I think we're gonna be very satisfied with the progress, especially in this first grant cycle year, with new programs and services that are offered countywide to individuals living with mental illness, substance use disorders, and/or intellectual developmental disabilities. There's a few achievements of note I'd like to point out. Casa River Valley. Casa River Valley is a service, court-appointed special advocates for, thank you, for children who are in foster care, who, for one reason or another, find themselves in family court. In the past, the court allowed for the volunteer guardian ad litem to represent the child in family court. That's no longer the case. The family court now requires an attorney to represent children, an attorney to play that role of guardian ad litem. So the 708 board has funded that legal representation for those children in family court. And Casa River Valley, already their feedback has indicated that it's really been a significant improvement, particularly for children with emerging signs and symptoms of mental illness, behavioral disorders. They're seeing a much more assertive role on the part of the attorney who's obtaining then court-ordered services for that youngster. So we see that as a really valuable effort. Little Friends, they're an organization that serves intellectual developmentally disabled children. They have a pretty large location in the Will County portion of Naperville. they've implemented a new respite services program, which is really unique. Respite services, sometimes we think of that as babysitting. You know, a person just spends time while the caregiver's away from the person that needs those support services. This program is very different. They offer respite services 2 evenings a week and 1 Saturday a month. And not only does the individual living with a disability participate in activities, siblings are encouraged to participate. So if it's a family, mom and dad or a parent can take the youngster who's living with the disability and their sibling, and the young person participates in activities, exercise programs, arts and crafts, you know, a wide variety of activity options with other people like them, other youngsters who are living with a disability. And so there's that peer support element. And then siblings participate in their own group. So not only are they staying active and have positive, fun activities, they're interacting with other siblings who may find themselves in this same circumstance where, you know, if you're a caretaker or a family member with a person who has a mental illness component or developmental disability, sometimes the sibling, you know, maybe is in a position where they sometimes feel left out, or maybe they don't get the kind of attention that the other child does. And so this sibling program has really benefited above and beyond even the expectation. When we were on a site visit, we were able to experience a little bit of that activity. And I spoke to one of the moms who said, you know, this has really changed our family. Simple weekly tasks, something like grocery shopping, where, you know, we don't think much of that, but trying to go grocery shopping with youngsters, especially a youngster maybe with a diagnosis of autism or behavioral disorder who doesn't want to be in the grocery store, can be a very difficult experience. Excuse me. So parents are reporting now they can get some of those tasks out of the way. The children who don't want to be there anyway are at a positive, better experience. And so it's, you know, it's just a better environment for the family in general. And this one mom in particular said, we can have a date night with my husband. And, you know, on the weekend, we could go to a ball game or we could do a couple of things. And just that little bit of respite means everything for our family and our family dynamic. So I think that's a really exceptional opportunity for GAP services. Right now, they are serving 75 young people in that respite program. Mental Health Matters, they're an organization, all they do is pay the copay for individuals or families who maybe have insurance but can't afford the copay, especially families who may have more than one medical issue or mental health issue or substance use disorder. It can be difficult for a family to pay all those copays. So Mental Health Matters, that's really at the core of what they do. In this first quarter, they have moved 70 individuals and families who live in Will County off the waiting list, and they are now engaging in counseling services. So pretty significant improvement. Heart Haven Outreach, an excellent program. They've been around for quite a while. They're based in Bolingbrook. They have an intimate relationship with Valley View School District. They do provide services at some level in the schools. They have peer support groups at their location in Bolingbrook. Middle school and high school age youngsters. It's an extraordinary program. Through the years, I've been a speaker at many of their programs. They sponsored Operation Snowball. You may have heard of that for young people. It's a very successful program. They do really good work. They provided 156 rides in the first quarter for middle school and high school youngsters to attend peer support programs. And the young people that I spoke to when I was there, without exception, every single one of them said they would not be able to participate in the program without the transportation opportunity. So again, funding that is really going straight to the one-on-one support of individuals living with mental illness, developmental disabilities, or substance use disorders. Lastly, the Joliet Recovery Community Center, they're a new operation, fairly new. They've been, their doors have been open for, I think, about a year now. They're located on South Chicago Street. They are providing an opportunity for people without a home address to receive mail there, which, we don't think about that very often. Our name and our address and our phone number, we know from the time we're children. Not to have a home address is, it's difficult if you want an ID or you're trying to appeal for services. If you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to fill out employment services, it can be very difficult to be successfully considered and get an interview if you don't have a home address. And so they're providing that services for folks in the community. Our grant budget outline, the 2025 grant cycle outline, which again, we're not quite through 50% of that program. On the first day of the 2025 fiscal year, we sent a payment to the Will County Health Department, $3.75 million. In May, we collected approximately $4 million in the first half of the levy. The October collection will be similar. We've committed the grant award. Our 2025 grant cycle is April 15th to April 14th, 2026. We've committed $5.1 million to that effort. And again, as we go through our grant cycle year, grantees report again October 15th. I'll be back in December with lots of achievements to report. And then January 15th, April 15th, we'll conclude our grant cycle reporting. Our fiscal year 2025 operating budget was $347,000. Actually, I think when we reach the end of the year, we'll be under that dollar amount. But I will say that is less than 1% of our overall budget. Less than 1%, 0.0435 something. So less than 1% of our our overall budget is the operating budget. Our goal was to always be below 5%, but so we're definitely on track. So the 2026 budget proposal and tax levy request, at some point, we thought that, in the first year, we paid the health department $4 million. In our second fiscal year, we paid $3.75 million. We had thought at one time that we could maybe diminish over the years the contribution with the funding from the federal level, with some unknowns and some cuts that are already happening that will affect the Will County Health Department. We don't feel like we're in a position to be able to do that. And so we are, in fact, recommending that we go back to the $4 million stipend that we paid in the first year in order to make certain that we are sustaining some of those new programs, new staff, new programs and services that have been implemented in a great fashion by the Will County Health Department. Similarly, the $5 million that we've committed this year to new programs and services to our grantees, we want to make sure that we're able to sustain those programs. So, and we'll walk through the dollars in a minute, but we want to make sure that we have at least $5 million in our budget, again, to sustain those great programs that we've started. And although we've talked about a couple of good programs throughout the course of site visits and conversations with grantees, there are some really terrific programs that people are hiring staff. One example, Trinity Services is under construction now for a teen mental health center that will serve high school students throughout the county. And it's going to be a terrific program. And it'll be located in the same building as the living room, which is open 24/7, 365 days a year at no fee. So some great collaboration for new services that are coming up, again, in this current grant cycle. We did receive $8 million in applications. We awarded 5. We do anticipate a significant amount of new requests in this upcoming grant cycle in 2026. I can think of a dozen organizations that we had hoped to see apply in 2025 that for one reason or another didn't. We're certain that we'll see those applications in the upcoming year. And then the fire department reports unprecedented success with the Community Cares Program. I was so inspired at Public Health and Safety. Mr. Logan, thank you for inviting the fire department. We've been participating in that Community Cares Program for some time, and we've talked with the fire department about the value of their program and how important it would be to expand that program countywide. So the Will County Mental Health Board has included those dollars in our budget. We've been talking to some of the other fire departments. I'll give you an example. Washington Township has been funding the Beecher Fire Department for a similar Community Cares Program. They have depleted those funds, and so they came to the Will County Mental Health Board just last Monday at our meeting to ask for emergency funding. And so we're going to work on emergency protocols to create a funding tool. We've always thought of ourselves as a funding source for emergency funding in the community for mental health, substance use, developmental disability services, trying to get the program underway and award the first grant cycle. But now we're in a position where we're going to be able to create that emergency funding protocol and start to entertain emergency funding requests. But one thing I think it's really important that we talk about, the fire department gave some good information, but there's a really important component of that fire department program that they didn't talk about at Public Health and Safety. Every month, the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month, the fire department hosts a meeting and providers in the community gather around a big table. We meet right now over at Bicentennial Park. There's 25 to 30 providers in the community there most every meeting. Raquel Coutreau, the social worker for the fire department, maintains a spreadsheet, and they bring folks that maybe are in counseling or and are still struggling, individuals and families, or folks that maybe haven't quite gotten to a position yet where they're ready to engage in counseling and they're still having interactions with the fire department on a regular basis. Those individuals and families are brought to the table. It's very confidential. We talk about circumstances, not names or individuals. It's again, a very confidential process. So, and then we discuss the circumstances, and then around the table, the provider will talk about where they can be helpful. So if a family is struggling with housing, they're about to be evicted, there's several organizations that can provide eviction prevention. There are some that can provide funding if they're behind in their rent. There's some that can provide counseling, for financial counseling, so that they can get themselves back on track. There's some that can provide depending on the circumstances, that can provide housing. If it's a mental illness problem, there's many providers that can help the folks engage in counseling. And it's not just a phone call. It might be a visit to the home with someone from the fire department and someone from the provider. It's a very, very assertive, very outreach effort. Raquel and this is the most important component of all, Raquel keeps track of who said they'll do something on her spreadsheet, and then at the next meeting, we go around the table and say, okay, remember this circumstance, Cornerstone, did you do what you said you were going to do? Will County, did you do what you said? And so there's accountability on the part of the people. So it's not a circumstance, and we've all been in these meetings where we say, or another person says, oh yeah, we can do this, or this might work, or, these people do this, and nothing ever happens. That's not the case. This is such an incredibly important component of this Community Cares program. 184 individuals and families have had resolution to challenges in this calendar year already, where they are now living in a more stable environment. They're not calling the fire department on the regular basis. People aren't calling the police department on a regular basis. So I say all that to preface what we talk about on the next slide. Ding. In our proposed budget, we talked about the Will County Health Department, the $4 million recommendation. We are proposing that the Will County Community Mental Health Board help fund that community-wide Community Cares program in cooperation with the Joliet Fire Department. Again, because it's more than just paying for that counseling session. And I'll go back to Beecher Fire Department as an example. They're doing a really good job with Community Cares. Washington Township has funded the program. They've depleted their funds. The deputy chief, a fellow named Tim McGannon, is really in the role of the quote unquote social worker. He's the person that, is following up. Did you go to counseling? How did it go? Do you need other services? Providing a warm handoff to other providers if that's what that individual or family needs. And so Troy Township is offering the Community Cares program. Plainfield Township, again, patterned after the Joliet Fire Department program, but without that social worker. And this Joliet Fire Department program has really covered all the bases in terms of counseling and the wraparound services support from social worker and other firemen who are involved in the program. Brian Hertzman, one of the deputy chiefs, literally goes out and knocks on doors to find out what's happening. So we've talked to the fire department a few times. They're funding approximately, the approximate numbers given to me by Chief and Deputy Chief Cook, who was at the meeting. They've spent about $600,000 in this fiscal year with the citywide program. And so we've budgeted $1 million. Many of the townships are funding their own program, like I said. So this would be an enhancement to their program, and where possible, the possibility of the addition of a social worker to enhance that effort, provide accountability, provide follow-up, provide that warm handoff of services as needed, and really get individuals and families the help they need to get back to a stable environment. Okay. The sustained funding we talked about, we'd like to make certain that we sustain the good things that are happening for the folks that we committed to in 2025. So at $5 million, request for new funding, it will far exceed the $1 million ask, but that's what we're budgeted for. And then operating costs, although we're asking for additional money, we're not anticipating an increase in operating costs. We still want to be at that less than 1%. We have a staff person and some attorney fees and a membership fee in association, and we're trying to make certain that we keep those costs very efficient and very low. And so our proposed budget requires a levy of 0.04% this year. In our first year, the levy, and I'm using my own tax bill here as an example. In our first year, the levy was at 0.0263. This year, or I'm sorry, excuse me, erase that, 0.0362. This year, it's at 0.0263. And I'll use myself as an example. I'm a person that I don't have a lot of deductions. I'm a stereotypical, they talk about people that work through April for the government. That's me, although I feel like I feel like this year I worked through the middle of May for the government. I'm not interested in taxes. I'm not interested in new taxes or increased taxes. But I do think it's helpful for me to give you just a little bit of perspective, again, using my own circumstances. I live in an average home, a modest home. It's assessed at about $250,000. In the first year, at 0.0362, I paid $8.85 for the year, for the whole year, $8.85. This year, I'll pay 0.0263. I'll pay $6.43 for the year. So again, I'm not at all interested in increased taxes at 0.040%, and legally we're allowed to go to 0.050. We're proposing 0.040. A person in my circumstance would pay about $9.50 for the year. So again, I am passionate about the taxes and not increasing those taxes, but I think that's a valuable perspective that for what would be $12 million in support to the community that provides a pretty comprehensive support outline throughout the county. I, for one, would not be opposed to paying that $9.50 a year. So again, that's just bringing some perspective to the dollars and cents. And I think that then concludes my presentation. Of course, unless you have any questions, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. I do see a couple questions that came up, so I believe Member Berkowitz was first.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I wanted to find out if the county board can receive a detailed report on the breakdown of the 2025 operating costs.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
I actually would love to have that included as part of the finance committee.
Okay.
I think that would be appropriate to have it placed on that agenda.
Sure.
At least quarterly. Then you mentioned membership costs. Does the mental health board pay memberships for different organizations?
We belong to an association of Community Mental Health Boards of Illinois, ACMHAI. We belong to an association that they provide advocacy. They provide, and I'll give you a good example. As we're talking about outlining a tool for emergency requests, I appealed to them for protocols of what other community mental health boards are doing throughout the state, and got some really good information to work from. So they're an association that we belong to.
What is the cost for that?
$16,000 annually.
$16,000.
Yeah, it depends. It's a percentage of
Do you have
your.
a description of what you're getting for $16,000?
Yeah, it's, again, it's primarily an advocacy organization. But they do provide a lot of the nuts and bolts information. We meet once a year in person, once a year online, so it's an opportunity to chat with other community mental health boards, 708 board associations throughout the state. But I can also provide you with a better description of that too.
Thank you.
Be happy to.
And that's the only membership fee?
It is.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it is. We might have a Joliet Chamber fee.
Why would we belong to the Joliet Chamber?
They have good insight into what's happening in the community. It's a good opportunity for promotion of the 708 board to a lot of the providers in the community. Even though it's Joliet, it's well attended by countywide providers.
Okay, so I'm going back. I mean, we have to approve the levy.
Right.
So it is our responsibility to understand the foundation and the mission of the mental health board. What is the policy when you're determining whose application is accepted? what is the criteria and the policy for the size of the organization? You have organizations that are small, they're more of a small nonprofit versus something like Little Friends, where they have a regional impact
Right.
with very, very strong funding. So what are your guidelines when you're choosing the dollar amount and who
Sure.
gets those funds?
Sure, good question. So we talked about the strategic priorities. Those really drive the decision-making more than the size of the organization. And again, the needs assessment drove that conversation. Cost, availability, and transportation. If you do a needs assessment just about anywhere, and you're talking about services for mental illness, substance use disorder, and intellectual developmental disabilities, the top three barriers to services are almost always going to be, again, anywhere, cost, availability, and transportation. And so when we talk about supporting or funding gaps in services, programs and services that are outlined in the applications that address some of those issues typically have a high priority. So for example, Little Friends, their respite program is a little fairly costly. It's a good program, but it's definitely a gap in services in terms of.
But it's full. It's absolutely full. And for years, people who need those services can't get in. And Little Friends actually is in Warrenville, not in Naperville. They have left Naperville, and their new facilities, which are gorgeous because, they even receive funding from Rotary and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this and I want to know that more people are able to get these services, and I don't know that that's necessarily happening. The other thing with CASA, I understand from a lot of members in my community, typically it's a mother who's going through a divorce, and that mandate that their child have a separate attorney is causing a huge burden for a lot of mothers out
It
there.
is.
So
It is. So
That's
it's great
how-
that we're able to help fund that.
I would also appreciate it if the board could get a report on who is benefiting from these individual recipients, like
Okay.
CASA. How many people, and we're in the county, are we touching the whole county? Because that's a concern, especially for the parts of the county that are maybe on the north, maybe on the south, but I would really like that information shared with the county board as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
County Board Member Trenier.
Oh, no, I'll take the title, Commissioner. Thank you. That's the title we should have. Thank you very much, Chair Van Dyne, and thank you very much for being here today to explain all of what is being accomplished with this new, very small levy, even though it sounds like a lot when you look at the number 12 million or 9 million or 8 million. I don't know what these organizations did before we got here. I do hope that with the injection of the funding that we're giving them, they are able to expand their services and that they're still getting the funds that they were getting. But I know there's been a lot of changes in our economy over the last few years, so that may not be true. We might just be filling in some holes left by someone else. I wanted to address one thing that you mentioned about that organization, I think you said, Joliet, that helps people have an address.
Correct.
They can go to any township and use the township building as their home address.
Oh, thank you.
I
Okay.
I didn't know if you were aware.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we have a number of unhoused people that they use the DuPage Township address as their home.
Okay, thank you.
So that, please let them know that that's also an option. And I was curious a little bit about the operating budget. It sounds like we're going to get that information.
Definitely.
I do know, I feel like we loaned the board some money for the first year while you were waiting for your first
Right.
tax levy. And I didn't know if those costs were incorporated in that number.
That money was paid back
It
in
was.
2024.
So it wasn't counted in this operating budget at all.
Right.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure of that. And then, let's see, as it pertains to the operating budget, I think you identified, what you're paying for. So that kind of explains, you mentioned the word attorney, and I already know it's a big number. And then
Not as big as the association.
yeah, really? Okay, well, that's good to hear. And I'm sure the association gives you a lot of free information.
We do take advantage of a lot of information, especially, we're still very new and Ms. Berkowitz, I really didn't answer the end of your question, but we're still really new and we're learning. We depend on a consultant to select, we identify metrics, what are our strategic priorities, what areas we want to see funding, what areas we want to see gaps in services provided dollars for, so that like what you're describing, who's actually getting helped, so that we are actually helping people that live in Will County create a better quality of life. So we have a consultant that has a number system who independently reads the applications, provides numbers based on specific categories, and the grantees have all the information. They know exactly what's valuable, what gets a number value, what doesn't. And the consultant determines those scores. And then we literally just took the scores and quite frankly, in intellectual developmental disabilities, that category, every applicant was funded. Substance use disorders, every applicant was funded. It was the mental health category where the applications far exceeded our dollars. And so that's where tough decisions had to be made. And at the core, the philosophy of the community mental health boards is the grassroots funding for, sometimes folks have needs that are so specific that they can't always be met by larger organizations. Sometimes it takes these smaller, sometimes I refer to them as mom and pop organizations. Like the group that does the copay, that's all they do is provide copays, and that's not provided anywhere else. I had a mom that called me that the family court required that they had an assessment in order for her to see her children, and her insurance company wouldn't pay for the cost of the assessment. And so I called Mental Health Matters, and that collaborative effort that we're trying to exploit, and I use that word exploit in a positive fashion. I called them, they paid for the assessment so the mom could go back to family court with this assessment and then was able to secure visiting time with her children. And so those grassroots efforts where people sometimes aren't able to find support services and specific to their needs is really a valuable sort of ripple effect, I think, of the Community Mental Health Board.
And just my last comment, the Will County Health Department money that you're putting into the budget, I actually expect that number to grow year by year, depending on what happens, like you said, from Washington. But we have just finished spending all of the ARPA fund money. And that money was sorely needed, and it went into a lot of really great things at the health department. And we don't have that funding source anymore. So
Right.
I can see that this is going to really benefit our health department, mental health care as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all members for your patience. I know we do have quite a few more questions coming. So Member Ocala.
Thank you. So I was just wondering, Tina, for me, and you listed all the different things all these groups do, which is great. I appreciate that. And I know this was our first year and things take time to change and happen. But I wonder what the process is, and I'm just going to pick the first one on the list, so not picking on anybody. 100 Club of Illinois, we gave them $20,000.
Right.
So when we look at that particular group, do we have the information as to how many employees they have, how many people they served before we got involved with them? and then the outcome as to what now they're able to do. I know 20,000 is a little bit, maybe they used it for advertising, I don't know. But to see what the positive impact was by us giving them 20,000, which is
Sure.
a small amount. And then also, do we know what the percentage of their personnel costs are for the overall cost of their, what work they provide? And I understand that when you have an organization that's going to have a lot of therapists, your personnel costs are going to be higher. But let's just say, I'll pick the Blueprint Agency just to start, it's 199,000, so nearly 200,000. And maybe their personnel costs are 70% of their salary, which it could be because they've hired specialists, right?
Right, that's your primary effort.
Correct, right? And so, but by us doing that, they were, before we became involved and gave them a grant, they were only able to help 7 women or seven people. But now, because of this additional funding, they were able to do something else. That would be good background for me to
Okay.
understand. And I know, like I said, I know this is all new and we're growing and we're learning, right?
Right,
We're learning.
right. So in the initial application, the requirements for information are pretty thorough, pretty comprehensive. We talk about overall budgets. Where exactly did the money that funds the overall budget come from? Is it United Way, fundraisers, other grant programs? They have to identify exactly where their money comes from for their entire budget. The number of personnel, and a lot of accounting requirements and certifications, those kinds of things. Are they an operation that's been in Will County for more than a year? Have they been successful in their efforts up until now? So there's a very comprehensive outline of their organization, their budget, their personnel, what kinds of programs they offer, and that kind of thing. So then in the July 15th metrics that were required for their first quarter budget, the first question for every quarter will always be, how many people, Will County residents, have you served as a result of your grant award? And then some follow-up about that. How many, for example, if you've engaged 20 people in counseling, at the second quarter report, how many people have you sustained in that program? In the second quarter report, it's what percentage of increase in services have you incurred? So let's use Heart Haven, for example. The 156 transportation rides. The next quarter report will be how many additional rides since that 156 have been funded through, and we're funding their transportation, their vehicle, and then we're also funding a staff person for their real life support group. So how many new participants are there in the real life support group? And so then the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter will be the percentage of difference from that original change. So we can, we have it. I could, from the original application, I can tell you the percentage of costs in personnel. That's all spelled out very, very detailed. And then in the budget, in the applications, their budgets differentiate between personnel, equipment, supplies, consultants, there's categories. And those dollars are spelled out very specifically what they're spending the money on.
Okay, that's great to know. And then I have one more question. You mentioned that you want to have like an emergency funding source, and I understand that, that makes sense. But how do you identify what is an emergency?
Well, that's going to be that's part of our challenge to figure out now. We've got to build that policy and provide that tool. That's certainly going to be one of the questions that we'll have to answer. How does this qualify as an emergency? And I'll give you an example. The Beecher Fire Department, Washington Township, has given them $10,000 last year that funded their community cares program. They repeated another $10,000 that year. This year, they've depleted that money, and they're $400 and some in arrears with their counseling provider. So their appeal was to, for a couple $1,000s a month to get through this calendar year. My bias, I would say that qualifies an emergency. They've got people engaged in services. They have data that shows real impact, real positive impact in the community. The program is so successful that they've depleted their funds. So they need more dollars to get through this year. And then they'll be eligible to apply for our 2026 grant cycle. They'll be eligible to go back to Washington Township for new dollars in their new fiscal year. They'll have some options. So that might be an example of an emergency. Some other examples that other 708 boards talked about were facilities where the furnace went out or the air conditioner went out. Maybe they didn't have other resources. So those kinds of things. But good question. I'm going to work hard to answer that question well as we put together that tool for application.
And then just one last request. Would it be okay for us to get a blank copy of the application that they fill out? so
Oh,
we get an
absolutely.
understanding?
Yeah, on the webpage, it's called the NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity. It's all spelled out there's a link to the application and it's all spelled out, but I'll run a copy and I'll include it with the operating budget for the Finance Committee.
Thank you.
Ms. Mackey, maybe my suggestion would be after all these questions, maybe we can review the minutes and see the request from the board members and maybe put some sort of document together.
Sure.
And email it to the chief of staff so all the members can get that information.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let's move on to Member Hickey.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing in the community. I think it was really helping. I think it really matters. I benefit because I go to Moose and Me Bakery way too often. But I know they're very grateful for the help. And I hear what some folks are saying, like, how do we know that these organizations are helping
Of course.
specific Will County residents? And I have to say, as someone who was a great consumer of these types of services at one point in my boys' development, that, it's there's a synergistic effect, first of all, just by having these places available. And then you do have to weigh it with how many are absolutely available to Will County residents. For example, Little Friends at one point had an after-school program that was fantastic, but they were in line with 203 dismissal times, not 204 dismissal times. So we could never take part in that. And I do realize that there are 203 students in our Will County boundaries, but I just, the vast majority, at least in my district, are 204. And so I do get wanting to look out for those kinds of things and making sure, like, hey, we're not just subsidizing a program that has absolutely no way of benefiting someone here. I do see that there are multiple ways of helping people access mental health through the reimbursement for people who are having difficulty paying their copays. It seems like those are going some directly to providers and then some to an organization that helps. And then obviously this with the fire department. And I appreciate that the fire department came and spoke to us. I did have some questions. I believe that Member Freeman had some questions as well. So I do hope that we get some answers to those. And I hope we get some answers to those. My final thing is the recurring costs that you're talking about, I'm glad that you're budgeting for those. I realize that some of those are not salaries, so they're not necessarily going to be recurring dollar for dollar in the new year. However, chances are they're going to find a need. And I think that what you've decided is that we benefit as a community by these organizations being in place. I know other places have found out. I'm going tomorrow to the Alive Center to do a tour, so I don't think they want me there just for my pleasing personality. So.
Yeah. Well, and let me make a comment about your, the Will County residency issue. We do have a double check on that. We do, what's the word? We do have a check and balance, thank you. When people, our program is a reimbursement program. So when the organization spends the money and then they come to us and ask for the reimbursement. So the payment request is made through Amplifund. They have to attach a payroll report, a timesheet, a job description, a receipt for the item that they purchased. And good example, Mental Health Matters, they also attach a list of not people's names, but they attach maybe a first initial and an address. And so Little Friends, we've picked on them a lot today, but for example, in their respite program, they attach an initial and an address. So we have to see, when it's a circumstance when we're directly making certain that the person is a Will County resident, and that's a very high priority for us. It's built right into the payment request program. They have to provide us with the addresses of those. Now, I'm the only person that's going to see those addresses. I mean, they might be subject to FOIA, but we don't. We're not dwelling on the name of the family or the name of the individual, but we are eager to make certain that there's address. So we are providing a check and balance there. And then, the other thing you referred to, I think, and we're having a meeting next week. All of the grantees are required to attend. It's a collaboration meeting. I failed to mention why the IRIS. IRIS is a resource and referral program that's already implemented at the Will County Health Department through their All Our Kids program. It's an excellent method for collaboration. If a person finally comes in for services and gets signed up with one organization, but maybe they need a little bit help in other areas, they're entered into the IRIS system, and then the other organizations or providers, then you kind of click who you think that person needs help with or the family needs help with, and then they get an email that says, hey, Jane Smith, we're meeting with her today for counseling, but there's a substance use issue. I think Will County Health Department, it would be helpful for you to reach out to that person. I've gotten some IRIS requests for general information. I've been able to contact people and give them a good scope of opportunities and choices for services. So next week at our collaborative meeting, most of our grantees are in the IRIS system. It's a wonderful program. There's accountability. It provides a warm handoff to folks that need additional support. We're going to make certain that all of our folks are enrolled. And so again, not unlike the fire department, it's that what really makes the difference is that a level of accountability and the collaborative effort, so that people are getting maybe all of the almost like a 360-degree bubble of support where they need it. Especially important for our children, to be able to get the services that they require.
Member Newquist?
Thank you. I have a question, and this is probably just my ignorance, but I know that you have mentioned providing services for intellectually, developmentally disabled individuals.
Yes.
I tend to not think of that under the heading of mental illness.
Sure.
Can you just explain a little bit more about the services that we provide, and is there overlap with other, potential grant programs or other resources?
Opportunities?
Yes, opportunities.
Yeah,
Thank you.
There are to some degree, in our metrics and our requirements for the application, I think we do a pretty good job delineating between program opportunities that are eligible for other funding. Typically, intellectual developmental disability, and I've worked in that environment for many years, as well as mental illness. Typically, those programs are generally more eligible for housing support, SILA services. So again, when we evaluate the grant applications, in all three categories, actually, we're kind of identifying program applications that maybe have opportunities for funding in other area. And I'll give you a good example with, in the area of substance use. We had a program submitted for a vaping program. You know, vaping right now is eligible for significant levels of funding at the state level. So we did not fund that program. Now, they had another portion of that program that provided support services to intellectual developmental disability folks who, for employment services. Those programs aren't so readily available, and so we did fund that. In some townships and counties, the 708 board funds mental health and substance use disorders, and there's another a funding opportunity for intellectual developmental disabilities. But in most, those three categories fall under the auspices of the community mental health. That's the way the legislation was written. I don't know. I think often when I talk about mental illness, often I get questions about diagnosis of autism when technically that's probably not considered, but you know, it may be an anecdotal situation where people think of some of those diagnoses as belonging under mental illness. I'm not sure, but in our circumstance, the legislation calls for funding in those three pillar categories.
Thank you.
There's, to your question of like what kinds of things, we do have, employment services was a predominant ask for application. Equine therapy was a predominant ask. We have 3 grantees who provide some really, really neat equine therapy programs for youngsters with intellectual developmental disabilities and co-occurring disorders with behavioral or disorders and issues.
Member Ortiz? Decline. Member Freeman?
Thank you, and I will be fast. I have 2 questions. First of all, thank you. Then I want to also say, this was awesome, the map showing us where the services are.
Thank you.
Great. The reserve amount, you talked about operating costs and reserve amount, but you didn't really tell us what you're saving in reserve. Do you have a dollar amount to that?
I don't, standing here today, we haven't collected our second half levy. We're anticipating that's $4 million. I think that our operating budget is going to be significantly lower than that $375,000 at the end of this fiscal year. But I can project that with the financial
I didn't know if there was like a
report.
percentage that you needed to keep to make sure that you're funded throughout when you're waiting for the tax.
On the first day of the 2025 fiscal year, our balance was $2 million. So I think it'll be a little bit more than that, based on what's left. We committed $5 million, which was a little bit more than our first half levy. And there's a really good reason I'm in social services, because numbers are not really my thing. But I'll work with finance, and we'll get you that specific number with
Then
the
the
operating
other thing is,
budget.
I don't see, you had talked about an emergency fund, but I don't see it in the line. Are you just including that in the sustained funding for the 2025 grantees?
Right, that would be in the
Not going to separate that out.
buffer, right?
Okay, that was all. Thank you.
Member Logan? Good, okay. Leader Richmond?
Quick one. What did you say that your anticipated levy was going to be?
For the proposed,
Yes.
the 0.040%.
Okay, thank you.
And that finance estimates that at $12 million.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I see no more lights. Thank you all for the questioning. And like I said, if we can get some of those answers emailed over, that would be fantastic.
Great.
Thank you so much, Tina Mackey, for your.
Thank you again for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right. Number 2, under new business, 25-2190, ordinance amending chapter 41 of Code of Ordinances. I think we have a clean roll. Previous Hickey, second Williams. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. 25-2320, amending chapter 50 of Code of Ordinances. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed to that? Motion carries. 25-2322, repealing chapter 52 of Code of Ordinances. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. 25-2323, amending chapter 53 of the Code of Ordinances. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? That motion will carry. 25-2324, amending chapter 54 of Code of Ordinances. Now we're after the vote.
Before the vote.
Okay. We have a first, second, previous, and second. I believe our state's attorney would like to chime in. You're on.
Oh, so there was a typo in what was proposed in section 54.99. It says semi-annual. It should have read annual. So if we could just have a motion to that effect to correct it.
Annual versus
Discussion on the amendment. So we're voting on the amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? That motion will carry. Can we go back to the original motion to approve as amended? Sure. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And I will say, I had the opportunity to sit in on the ad hoc ordinance committee, and I was super impressed. And you guys do work really hard, and it's nice to see this going in motion, and we're getting things accomplished. So congratulations to the ad hoc committee. All right, is there any other new business to be brought forward for executive? There is no request for state's attorney's opinion. Committee reports. We'll start with Chair Trenier with Public Works and Transportation. Okay, thank you. And don't forget to turn on your microphones if you would, please.
Sorry.
That's okay. Moving on to capital improvements, Chair Freeman.
I have nothing to bring forward. We did have our facility needs report. It's on file. It's online. Check it out. That's all.
Thank you. Chair Newquist for Finance.
We had a couple of presentations. I don't know if those are going to be carried over into the county board meeting. Rashawn did a presentation on revenues for the budget. And then Chief of Staff, Chuck, did we have an addition to bring forward?
Yes, we do, and that'll come later in this agenda.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. No, then other than that, I have nothing else.
thank you. Legislative Chair, Chair Ortiz.
Thank you so much. I have nothing to bring forward this month, but we are reviewing our legislative agendas, so I do invite all members to come. I do want to give a quick shout out to our leaders, Leader Williams and Leader Richmond, for attending, also Member Freeman. So please, everybody come if you guys want to put in some input on our federal and state legislative agendas. Our next special meeting is scheduled for the 25th of September at 11 a.m. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Public Health and Safety Chair, Mr. Butler.
So I would like to request a few things to be added to the agenda for public health and safety. The first is a report from the coroner for number of deaths, types of cause of death, as requested at the meeting. She doesn't have to come, we just need a written report. I would like the state's attorney to also come to the meeting. I'd like a review of cases and a revenue expense report per case. And I would also like to know a report on the effects of the Safety Act and how it's benefited or, hindered the state's attorney's office. I would also like the sheriff there, and I would want another crime report and also to talk to us about the effects of the Safety Act and to speak to us a little bit about procedures and the differences under the Safety Act. And then under old business, I would like animal control added.
Okay. Chief of Staff is writing all those requests down and they'll be considered. Thank you.
Mhm.
Does that complete your report? Yep. Okay, thank you. Land Use and Development, Vice Chair Newquist?
It was fairly uneventful, but we did have a question come up. So there were quite a number of extensions for solar permits, and we were wondering if it was possible to put those in a consent agenda.
For this full board's meeting coming up?
Yeah, just the extensions. It was a question, we kind of discussed it a little bit at committee, and we were just wondering if that were even legally possible.
We probably have to review that with the state's attorney.
Okay. It's not a big deal, just kind of looking to save some time. Thanks.
And if not, maybe that's something we can consider for the meetings to follow. Yeah, question on land use and development? Mr.
I
Butler?
would just like to save some time about that consent agenda. We shouldn't do it because I'll object to it.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you for the heads up.
Yep.
All right. Moving on to landfill, they did not have a meeting, no information. New information was given. Vice Chair Hickey, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, just one thing, I believe we all received an invitation by Geologic, which is Marty Fallon, the geologist that is working on there for their open house in St. Charles. It's on September 25th, so if anyone wants to carpool after the special legislative meeting, give me a call.
Thank you. Executive, we do have an addition coming up, so I will pass on that for now. Appointments by the county executive, 25-2605, the appointment to the Godly Public Water District. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? That motion will carry. 25-2606, the executive appointment to Workforce Investment Board of Will County. I'm sorry, can we repeat that one more time? Who made the first motion, Ortiz? Second, Freeman? Got it. Discussion on that, Mr. Richmond?
So I just wanted to jump back. You said that you wanted to put an addition on for the agenda. What was that topic, that one?
It's going to be under finance. Before we approve
Is that in regards to the,
authorizing use of contingency funds for the IPMG wire.
okay. And is, Dan, is that what you were, so is that what you wanted not?
No, I think Mr. Butler was referring to putting the extensions for the solar farms on the consent agenda, that he would not be willing to go along with that. So,
All right.
yeah.
The two kind of merged together in my mind.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
We clear? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
What is, you
I'll
mentioned,
I'll get to it here as soon as we get through this, this appointment by the Workforce Investment Board. We do have a second previous, so any more discussion on that? Yes, sir.
I was just curious, is there a limit to how many appointments someone gets? I mean,
I don't know if I understand your question completely.
I mean, he's getting appointed to a lot of different boards. I mean,
No, this is, if you read the agenda, this is brought forward by Mike Mahoney. He's not the one being appointed.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is from the executive's office. I requested that so we know who exactly can speak on the topics if questions were asked. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? That motion carries. Mr. Richmond, do you have anything?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay. 25-2607, executive appointment to the Bonnie Bray Manor Sanitary District. Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? That motion will carry. Anyone from the public wishing to make a comment?
No, but I have a question about something else. I forgot to bring it before, for the Godly Public Water District. In the resolution, in the now therefore be it resolved, it says that appointment to the Workforce Investment Board of Will County. Yeah. I know, I meant to bring it up before.
We'll correct that.
Okay.
We'll correct that before it hits the county board agenda.
Thank you for that catch. Public comment? Seeing none? Any comments by the county board members? Member Freeman?
Thank you. I would like to say that I think we need to think about changing the way that our committees, our agendas are. There's been several desires this month to break the rules, suspend the rules and move public comment to the top. I don't have a problem if it's there originally. I do have a problem with the continuous suspending of the rules. So I don't know if this is a conversation that you want to have. There's nothing in our rules book to state how our committee agendas are put, so I don't know if we have to vote on it or.
I would.
I'd say, I know exactly what you're saying, and it has been my consideration, and I had asked the chief of staff to double check with the state's attorney if that's something that's acceptable. He has not gotten that answer yet because I had just asked yesterday. So that is something that I would like to see is public comment by.
If I may,
I'm sorry, it's my turn, Maria.
Yeah, is my intent to try to put public comment for agenda items only at the beginning because of that reason. So as soon as I get an answer, that's something that can be considered.
I just think it makes sense if someone's going to come and they want to talk before we get to the whatever, then they should have that option.
Thank you.
But I don't agree with suspending the rules. So
Okay.
thank you.
I'll go to under county board members' comments, Mr. Butler.
I know there was some confusion during public health and safety. A motion to suspend rules is necessary and is used in our every committee and all over the country. What I did was not request a motion to suspend rules. I believe one of the Democrats from the board did that. I simply asked if there was no objections, because in operating a board to save time, if there are no objections, then you have unanimous consent. Therefore, no vote is necessary. All someone had to do was say, I object to that. And then we would have had to ask for a motion to suspend rules. It's just a common technique that a chair will use to expedite the meetings. So I know that a lot of people aren't familiar with Robert's rules yet, but that's what that was. But it was, I believe Al had just tried to eliminate any further argument and made a motion to suspend rules.
Thank you for your clarification. Member Trunier?
Yeah, it happened in public transportation, Public Works and Transportation. I really would like to see the public comment up at the beginning of the agenda for, and you could say for items on the agenda. I don't care if they're on the agenda. It could be any item under jurisdiction of the county, as far as I'm concerned. If they want to talk about, the cost of tea in China, well, we don't do that. But if they want to talk about how much we're paying, for each kilowatt of electricity our buildings, and they want to ask that in public transportation, well, they can ask, but I'm not going to have the answer, and we're not going to entertain an answer. But I think having it at the beginning would be far better. And then there won't be any need for this, any motion to suspend the rules or, through unanimous consent. It just takes care of it.
Right. And that's, yeah, I believe that's what we're trying to avoid.
Yep.
But I would suggest that we would keep open public comment towards the end. So that way we can finish our business through the committee, process. But
I'm okay with 2, but would we still have the same limit where the person could only speak once for 3 minutes? I guess that's my only concern, because that's our rules now, is that when somebody comes, and again, unless we make a motion to suspend the rules, they only get to speak once. In my committee, I invited the mayor to come and speak a second time. But as the chair, I guess I can do that, but nobody objected, so.
do you want to comment, Chuck?
I was going to say that there are very specific rules outlined with regard to how county board meetings are proceeding. But with regard to the committee meetings, there really are no requirements on that. So I think what we'll do is I've made an appointment. Kevin and I will talk a little bit about what we can do to resolve some of these issues and what the committee or what the chair's authority would be in terms of restricting or limiting the public comment so that it doesn't get out of hand. But we'll talk about that, and we'll have a resolution to that.
I definitely don't want to see a filibuster. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Ogala?
Thank you. So yeah, Chuck is absolutely correct. Committee rules are, how you run your agenda is completely different than our board rules, and you have much more freedom being the chair of a committee. You're the chair of this committee. You can make decisions, move things around on your own because you just can as the chair. So that's true. I like the idea of having it for the agenda items only at the beginning, so it's concise. And then at the end, people can come and talk about donuts if they wish, which I wish they'd bring donuts if they were talking about donuts. But also I would like to have it would be nice to have a committee comments by county board members, because, sometimes at the end of things, you've heard some stuff and you want to make a statement about something, or even request, in public that could staff please get us a copy of the report like that Tina gave us today, something like that. So.
And I believe, we bounce back and forth from county board to forest preserve commissioners, and some of the agendas aren't aligned. And I had always wondered why on some agendas, there's not an opportunity for our board members to speak. So that's something, also that we can look into. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Butler?
So I would be opposed to making the agendas any more strict and taking the chair's ability to run his committee the way they see fit. I think in a situation where, and I'm just taking public health and safety, where I found out just 2 days before that the animal control wasn't coming to my committee, and I tried to call the different municipalities to let them know, because I know they wanted to come talk, but they said they'd talked to their sergeants, they all came, and they had cleared their schedule. And I thought, well, there's nothing to say, so why not just move them ahead? These are all officers serving our communities, and I was just trying to make it so that they could come, say what they had to say, and then get back to work. And I think that, to be able to do that is a good service to the community overall. So making things so that it's harder for people's voices to be heard because, of having fears that something might, get by somebody, I think that's unfounded. It's a committee. The topics are all on there. A simple change of procedure to benefit these officers and their workloads, it was really not a big deal.
All right, thank you. Any other comments by county board members? I will turn it over to our Republican leader. Any comment? All right, Democratic leader, Williams, nothing. County board speaker, I have nothing. We have no need for executive session. So moving on to the approval of the county board agenda, which is 25-2835, Will County Board draft agenda. I'm looking for a motion to amend the county board agenda to add all items approved out of the executive committee today and an additional item that may be passed out of the special finance committee on Tuesday, authorizing use of contingency funds for IPMG wire. And if I can get a motion in a second, then I will turn it over to Mr. Pelkey to do some explanation. Motion Trenier, seconded by Newquist.
Discussion?
Yeah, well, let Mr. Pelkey go ahead and let you know what this is all about.
This is a last minute motion that was requested by finance, and actually Rashawn Howard is here right now and she'd be able to walk you through what that request would be. So, oh, she had to go. Marcy, do you want to? Yeah. Then Marcy will walk you through that.
So the IPMG wire is in relation to the Tort Immunity Fund. This came up last year at this time also. So there's a resolution that we put on the Special Finance Committee. This way we will avoid being delayed making 2 payments. If we had to wait till the next finance in October, we would miss 2 of the wire funds. So this will allow us to get it approved at this meeting.
Open for discussion. Mr. Butler, did you have a question?
Yeah, this vote for this, does this in any way reflect my request to have those items put on my agenda?
This vote, no, it does not.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Member Trenier?
I know what IPMG is. You're saying we're just wiring the money?
They're-
Why he says IPMG.
They're who we wire the money to.
Okay.
Yeah, that's who we
It's
reference.
the insurance
Yeah.
company name, but I couldn't understand the wire thing. I thought, are we buying some wire?
No, no,
Okay.
they're the middleman.
Member Ogala?
Yeah, I'm just curious, what is the dollar amount?
I don't recall. I believe we put in the
Approximately?
resolution 300 or 350,000. And that's just, we don't know the exact number. We know where we should fall in. So that will cover us to get to the end of the fiscal year.
And then what does that leave us under contingency fund?
About 400,000.
Okay, thank you.
And now that I think about it, why are we using contingency? Why wasn't this just already in our budget? Or did the premium go up that much?
Well, the Tort Immunity Fund is a special fund that we levy for. We did increase the levy last year in hopes to avoid this, but costs and stuff just continue to rise. And we're going to also, if you look at the budget book in the back of the levy, we also are requesting additional funds again this year. So
No, and I heard in the Forest Preserve meeting, the health insurance went up 16% and, yeah, and it's getting really ridiculous. I've seen a lot of the articles, especially about one particular insurance company and homeowner insurance. Thank you.
All right, we
just
do,
have a
yeah,
Question.
Member
Sorry.
Newquist?
Sorry, thank you. So is this to pay our premium or is this to replenish or, to pay out for damages?
it's not a premium payment. It's to pay the continuous requests that they have for different things that come up. We'll have human resources there. They're the ones that handle it. And Rashawn will be there. If there's any additional questions, we'll have them at the committee
So
meeting.
it's various settlements and
Yes,
things like that?
yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Any other questions for Marcy? All right, we do have a first and a second on the amendment. Is there a previous? Previous roll Freeman. Second Williams. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we need a motion to approve the county board agenda as amended. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Is there anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Our next scheduled meeting is for October 9th, 2025. Can't believe it's October coming up soon already. I did bring sunshine though yesterday and today. Somebody had thanked me for that. So motion to adjourn. Motion Trenier, Seconded by Hickey. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you. Everyone enjoy their afternoon.